I never believed the most important nights announce themselves. They arrive wearing ordinary clothes, grease on the knuckles, rain in the cuffs, and only later do you realize the deck has shifted beneath your feet. My name is Ethan Rivera, 45, widowed at 39. Father to Leela, 9 years old and already better at reading silences than most adults I know. I weld steel for a living at the Portland docks. Long shifts, bright arcs, the taste of ozone and river brine that lingers on your tongue hours after you clock out. My family thinks I'm stuck. They say it gently, usually over holiday turkey, but the word still lands the same. They don't know about the 2 folded commendations in the back of my gun safe. They don't know I chose this life because it lets me come home every night smelling like work instead of regret. Tonight I'm at the Harbor View Pavilion delivering a commissioned piece. 7 feet of interlocking waves forged from salvaged hull plating. To the gala crowd, it will look like art. To me, it's just another job done right. One clean pass after another, no shortcuts, no flash. The pavilion glows like money pretending to be generous. Fairy lights strung overhead, champagne flutes catching gold, laughter that costs more per syllable than my monthly mortgage. I'm in my faded navy jacket, sleeves rolled, forearms still carrying yesterday's torch burns. I feel like the only real thing in a room full of performance. I'm easing the sculpture onto its pedestal when she appears. Victoria Reyes steps out of a black town car like she owns the gravity in the room. Mid-40s, dark hair swept into a low chignon. Midnight blue dress cut with quiet authority. CEO of Reyes shipping empire. Also, though neither of us knows it yet, the woman who will eventually ask me to risk the only steady life I've managed to keep. She's distracted, phone in hand, heel catching on an untaped power cable. She stumbles. I drop the dolly handles and catch her forearm before she hits marble. Her skin is warm against my calloused palm. Her perfume, cedar and something faintly citrus, cuts through the damp river air. "Careful," I say low. She looks up. Startled, then steady. Her eyes are dark, searching mine for a split second longer than necessary. "Thank you." Voice controlled, but there's a faint tremor beneath, like someone who isn't used to needing rescue. I release her slowly. "Ethan Rivera, just the delivery guy." Victoria Reyes, small, professional smile, host and apparently in need of better event staff. I nod toward the sculpture. "That's yours now. Hope it holds up under the lights." She turns, studies it. The steel catches the glow and throws it back in sharp, living planes. "It's honest," she says quietly. "Most things here aren't." I don't know what to say to that, so I don't. Silence has always been safer than saying too much. She glances back. "You built this? Welded it? By hand? Only way worth doing." Her gaze drops to the faded anchor tattoo on my left forearm. "Navy, long time ago. Which rate? Hull technician, damage control." Something flickers across her face, memory, maybe recognition. "Gulf of Aden, 2009, Theodore Roosevelt rotation." The air changes. "Yes, ma'am." She exhales a small, surprised sound. "I was 23, summer intern on the pier, handed out water bottles to men who looked like they'd walked through fire and brought the ashes home. I never forgot the way some of them still stood at attention even when they were too tired to breathe. I remember that day, the heat, the ache, the numbness. I never looked up at the kid in the blazer. I should have. Small world, I say. Smaller than we think." Guests stream past, suits, gowns, cufflinks flashing like warning signals. Victoria is pulled away by an assistant, but before she goes, she touches my sleeve, light, deliberate. "Thank you again, Ethan, for the catch. And for this," she nods toward the waves. "It's the most real thing in the room tonight." I watch her disappear into the crowd. I finish setting up, wipe my hands on a rag that smells of acetone and salt, and step back. The sculpture stands tall, unapologetic, like the life I've tried to build for Leela, one careful, deliberate choice at a time. Later, I'll wish I'd left right then, because the night is only beginning and the first real test is about to walk onto the stage. Maya Chen is 23, maybe. Black hair in a ponytail coming loose at the temples from nerves. Navy blazer that looks borrowed, tablet clutched like a life preserver. Her proposal is clean. Hybrid electric retrofits for mid-size container ships, 38% emissions reduction over 7 years, break-even in 4.1 years with current fuel prices. Numbers solid. Delivery trembling. She starts strong, voice clear for the opening slide. Then the hitch comes, a small stutter on sustainable propulsion. She catches it, breathes, pushes forward. In most rooms that would pass with a sympathetic nod. This isn't most rooms. A man near the front tables, silver hair, Rolex the size of a coin, leans to his companion and speaks just loud enough to carry. She's selling fairy tales to people who actually move steel. Adorable, laughter ripples soft then sharper. Maya's finger freezes above the tablet. The projected graph trembles behind her. Another voice, female, honey over razor. Sweetheart, we pay for ROI, not poetry. Try again when you've got real numbers. The laughter grows teeth. I feel the old burn start low in my chest. The same one from 2009 when a junior ensign cracked on the fantail and the team looked away. The same one when Leela's second-grade teacher called her reserved like it was a diagnosis. Maya tries again. The retrofit pays for itself in 5 years? Rolex interrupts, louder now, playing to the room. My quarterly targets are shorter than your timeline, darling. Maybe stick to coloring books. Phones come out. Someone starts recording. I glance at the exit. 18 steps. Truck keys in my pocket. Leela asleep with Mrs. Alvarez watching over her. Safe. Invisible. Everything I've spent 9 years protecting. Then I see Victoria. She stands near the bar, sparkling water in hand, watching Maya with the focused stillness of someone who once stood on a pier handing water to men too broken to drink it. Her jaw is set, her knuckles white around the glass stem. She doesn't laugh, she doesn't look away. But she also doesn't move, not yet. Maya's voice cracks, tears shimmer at the lash line, not falling but close. The room smells suddenly of expensive cologne and casual cruelty. I move before the decision fully forms, not rushed, not dramatic, just steady, the way you walk toward a fuel leak you know is about to flash. I cross the open floor. Heads turn, whispers trail. My work boots make soft thuds on polished concrete. I stop beside Maya. She looks up, startled, eyes wide and wet. I hold her gaze, low enough for only her. You're doing fine. Then louder calm, carrying to the front rows. She's with me. The room goes still like a hatch slamming shut in a storm. Rolex blinks. Excuse me? I said she's with me. I keep my eyes on Maya. Finish what you started, kid. Maya swallows, looks at me, looks at the slide. Something small but real straightens her spine. She taps the tablet. The graph reappears. She speaks again, voice steadier now. As I was saying, break-even in 4.1 years. After that, pure margin. And the ocean doesn't file quarterly reports, but it does send storms. We've all seen what a Force 10 looks like on a loaded deck. A few heads nod. Enough. Rolex opens his mouth again. Victoria steps forward. Enough. One word, quiet, final. The room obeys. She walks to the platform, heels clicking like measured heartbeats, stops beside me. Close enough I can smell cedar and citrus again. Maya's numbers are conservative, she says. I've reviewed the full model. They hold. If anyone wants to debate data instead of performing for likes, my office is open tomorrow at 9. Bring spreadsheets, leave egos at the door. She turns to Maya. You have 45 more seconds, use them. Maya does. When she finishes, the applause starts thin, tentative, then grows, not thunderous, honest. Victoria looks at me. Not gratitude, recognition. She doesn't say thank you aloud. She doesn't have to. Later, when the crowd thins and the quartet packs up, she finds me outside by the truck. Rain has started again, soft, steady, the kind that smells like cedar and fresh starts. She stands under the awning, arms crossed against the chill. You didn't have to do that, she says. I know. Then why? I look at the river, black water, moving slow and sure. Because someone once stood between me and the fire when I couldn't stand up myself, figured it was time to pay it forward. She studies me for a long moment. You're not just the delivery guy, are you, Ethan Rivera? I give her the smallest smile I have. Depends who's asking. She steps closer. Raindrops catch in her hair like scattered light. I'm asking. The rain thickened while we stood under the awning, steady enough to rattle the metal roof like distant small arms fire, soft enough that we could still hear each other's breathing over it. Victoria didn't back away when I answered her. She stayed close, close enough that I could see the faint gold flecks in her onyx eyes catch the glow from the pavilion lights behind us. Close enough that a single raindrop slid from her hair and traced a slow line down her temple before she brushed it away. Depends who's asking, I repeated, quieter this time, not testing the words anymore, just letting them sit between us like an offered hand. She didn't smile the polished hostess smile from earlier. This one was smaller, rower, almost unwilling. I'm asking as someone who just watched you cross a room full of people who think they own the world and pull a kid out of the fire without ever raising your voice. I glanced down at my boots. Wet now, scuffed leather darkened by rain. The same boots that had carried me through 3 deployments and every midnight run to the ER when Leela spiked a fever. I didn't do it for witnesses. I know. Her voice dropped lower. That's exactly why it landed. Silence settled then, comfortable, not awkward. the kind of quiet that happens when two people recognize the same scars without needing to point them out. The river beyond the pavilion lights moved dark and patient, carrying away the night's leftover noise. She spoke first. "You said someone stood up for you once? Who?" I hesitated. Not because the memory hurt, because it still carried weight like a full magazine you never quite empty. 2009, Gulf of Aden, escort duty for a humanitarian convoy. Pirates, not because the card wasn't sitting on my kitchen counter every morning like a quiet challenge, because I knew exactly what would happen the moment I did. Every day started the same. Leela's voice over oatmeal asking questions that cut straight through my defenses. "Dad, why do big ships float when they're made of metal? Dad, can you weld a rainbow? Dad, why do you look at that card like it's going to jump up and bite you?" I answered the first two with stories from the docks. The third I dodged with a kiss on her curls and a promise of extra marshmallows in her hot chocolate. Then the call came anyway, not from her private line. From Ray's Shipping's 24/7 ops desk at 4:03 a.m. on a Thursday. The Pacific Dawn, newest in their fleet, 14,000 TEU, fresh from the Korean yard, had lost steering 32 miles off the Columbia River bar. Steering ram sheared clean. Hydraulic lines burst. List at 7 degrees starboard and worsening, cargo shifting in the holds like loose ballast. Pumps running full, but the angle was creeping toward critical. If it hit 12 degrees, stability models said she'd roll. The voice on the line was calm, professional, terrified underneath. "Miss Reyes is requesting you personally. She said you'd know why." I knew. I dressed in the dark, coveralls, steel toes, the old foul-weather jacket still carrying faint diesel and salt. Leela stirred when I leaned over her bed. "Go back to sleep, bug. Mrs. Alvarez is coming early. Pancakes when I get home." She mumbled something about chocolate chips. I hoped I'd make it back for them. The drive to the Ray's corporate pier took 21 minutes through pre-dawn fog. When I pulled up, the place was lit like an active incident. Floodlights, emergency vehicles, media vans already circling like sharks scenting blood. Victoria stood on the quay in oversized rain gear and a yellow hard hat, staring at the black water where the Dawn should have been tied up safely. She looked smaller than at the gala, not diminished, just stripped down to the essentials. She saw me and walked over. No preamble. "Steering gear failed catastrophically. Chief engineer says it's unrecoverable at sea without yard parts we don't have. Tugs are coming, but the tide window closes in 90 minutes. If she grounds on the bar," she didn't finish. Didn't need to. I looked out at the invisible ship, felt the old rhythm return, the one that lives in your muscles after years of fighting water and fire. "You want me to go out there?" I said. Statement, not question. I want someone who's actually done this, not a consultant with spreadsheets, not a VP with simulations. You. I met her eyes. "I'm not on your books anymore, no certifications. If this goes south, I'll take every piece of liability, all of it." "That's not what worries me." She stepped closer. Rain ran off her hard hat in steady streams. "Then what does?" "Leela," I said, simple, true. "If I don't come back." Victoria's face changed. Something raw flashed behind the CEO mask, then steadied. "I wouldn't ask if I didn't believe you were her best chance to stay afloat." I looked at the water again, black, restless. "Familiar, get me a hello to the deck," I said, "and someone who can weld in heavy seas without losing their breakfast." She exhaled like she'd been holding oxygen since the first alarm. "Already inbound." The Sikorsky lifted 30 minutes later. Pilot was ex-Coast Guard, didn't waste words. "She's rolling hard, 90 minutes tops before critical list." Deck was chaos on arrival. Green water crashing over rails, containers groaning against turnbuckles, crew in survival suits moving like ghosts. Chief engineer met me at the hangar hatch, face ashen. "Port ram's gone, starboard leaking but holding. Jury-rigged bypass, but pressure's bleeding." I followed him below. Engine room smelled of hot oil, seawater, fear. Men worked knee-deep in flooding. Red emergency lights painted everything crimson. Next hour was crawl spaces, damage assessment, grease pencil sketches on scrap paper. Crew watched, wary, then trusting when my orders made sense. "Cut here, patch plate, triple the bypass, fast but clean." They moved. Bridge satellite feed patched Victoria in. Her face filled the screen, grainy, urgent. "Status. Patch will hold to the river, not elegant, but she'll float." Her relief was visible, unguarded. "Thank you, Ethan." "Don't thank me yet. We're not home." Hello ride back was rougher, turbulence tossing us like dice in a cup. Dawn was bruising the sky when we touched down. Victoria waited alone on the pier, media pushed behind barriers. I climbed out, legs shaky from adrenaline dump. She walked straight to me, pulled me into a hug that smelled of rain, coffee, and something warmer. "You brought her home," she whispered against my shoulder. I held her a second longer than protocol allowed. "We brought her home." When we separated, her eyes were bright, not tears, but close. "Come to the office tomorrow," she said, "not as a contractor, as someone I need to talk to. No titles, just us." I nodded. Back home, Leela met me at the door with a drawing, a big ship riding tall waves, stick figure me on deck holding a glowing torch. "Mrs. Alvarez said you saved a giant boat." I knelt, pulled her close. "Team effort, bug." But when I looked over her shoulder at the kitchen counter, Victoria's card was still there, now with one new pencil line on the back I'd added after the gala. "Call when the quiet isn't enough anymore." I hadn't called. She had. The corner office on the 23rd floor smelled of fresh ground coffee, lemon polish, and the faint metallic tang of the river drifting up through the open vent. Floor-to-ceiling glass framed the Willamette like a slow-moving canvas. Gray water, white wakes from tugs, the steel bridge arching in pale morning light. I arrived at 8:50 a.m., still carrying yesterday's diesel under my nails despite 2 showers. Clean flannel over a fresh t-shirt, no coveralls. The receptionist smiled without surprise and waved me straight through. Victoria stood at the window, back to the door, hands clasped behind her like she was bracing for inspection. Charcoal skirt suit, cream blouse, hair in its usual low chignon. When she turned, the CEO mask was gone, replaced by something softer, almost unguarded. "Ethan." "Morning." She gestured to the small, round table by the window. 2 mugs already steaming. No assistants, no agenda, just black coffee and a plate of plain croissants nobody would touch. We sat. Silence first, thick with everything unsaid. The kind that settles when 2 people know the next words will change the map. She spoke quietly. "Yesterday you walked onto a ship that was 30 minutes from rolling over in 20-foot seas. You didn't negotiate terms. You didn't ask for hazard pay or a title, you just went." I took a sip, coffee hot enough to burn. "You called, I came." "Why?" "Because you asked like it mattered." She studied me. "I looked you up after the gala, after the rain. After I watched you say, 'She's with me,' like it was the most obvious truth in the room." I set the mug down. "And enough to know you're not just a welder who does favors. 2 Navy crosses unclaimed. 1 Gulf, 1 classified South China Sea op. Turned down ominous for twice. Left active duty the day after your wife's funeral. Raised Leela alone since. Refused every headhunter call from defense contractors. Still show up when someone's in the fire." I didn't flinch. "You did your homework." "I did." She leaned forward slightly. "And I still don't understand why you keep it buried." I looked out at the river, tugs pushing barges upstream, steady against the current. "Because the second people know, they stop seeing the man, they see the medals. The hero. Then nothing I do is just mine anymore. It's always in service of the story. I want Leela to know her dad as the guy who makes pancakes on Saturday, not the guy who once pulled people out of burning water." Victoria's expression softened. "And what do you want, for you?" The question hit clean, no deflection possible. I met her eyes. "I want to stop pretending the past is the only thing that defines the present." She exhaled slowly. "Then stop." I reached across the table, took her hand, not tentative, sure, her fingers closed around mine like they'd been waiting for permission. "I'm not good at this part," I said. "The opening up. The letting someone close enough to see the cracks. I'm not either." Her thumb brushed the old burn scar on my knuckle. "But I want to try, with you." We sat like that, hands linked, city humming 30 floors below, the river carrying on like it had for centuries. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. "I have a confession." I waited. "I've spent 15 years building this company because it was easier than building anything that could leave. I told myself it was drive, it was fear. And yesterday, watching you bring that ship home, I realized I'm tired of fear. I want real. I want someone who sees the woman behind the title, not the heiress, not the CEO, just me." I squeezed her hand once. "I see you." She smiled, small, real, the kind that makes your chest ache in the best way. "Then stay for lunch," she said. "Not business, just us." I stayed. Lunch stretched into coffee that bled into afternoon. We talked about everything and nothing. Leela's obsession with drawing whales, Victoria's childhood summers on her father's old fishing boat, the way the river looks silver at dusk. We didn't kiss. Not yet. But the air between us felt charged, alive with the promise of what came next. When I finally stood to leave, the sun had dropped low, painting the office gold. She walked me to the elevator. At the doors, she touched my arm. "Call me tonight after Leela's asleep." I nodded. The doors closed. In the truck on the way home, my phone buzzed. Text from her. One word, stay. I smiled, slow, real, and for the first time in years it felt like I meant it all the way through. That night the apartment felt smaller, warmer, more fragile than usual. Leela had finished her bath, hair still damp and curling at the ends, wearing the oversized t-shirt she'd claimed from my drawer months ago because it smelled like Dad. She was on the living room rug, building a lopsided tower out of wooden blocks, each one placed with the same careful focus she used when coloring inside the lines. Captain Splash sat beside her like a silent supervisor. I sat on the couch with a mug of chamomile I hadn't sipped, watching her. Victoria's text from earlier, stay, still glowed in my mind like a pilot light that refused to go out. The card was back on the counter, no longer face down. Leela looked up, catching me staring. Dad! Yeah, bug. She set the final block on top. The tower swayed. When we finally hung up, the apartment was quiet except for the refrigerator's soft hum and the faint patter of rain starting again outside. I walked to the window. City lights blurred through the wet glass. For the first time in 5 years, the future didn't feel like something to survive. It felt like something worth building, one careful, deliberate choice at a time. 2 days later, the rain had cleared, leaving the air sharp and clean, every edge of the city outlined like fresh ink on wet paper. Victoria's house sat on a gentle curve of the Willamette in John's Landing. Clean modern lines, generous glass, but nothing ostentatious. Warm walnut floors, low bookshelves lined with charts and old maritime logs, a few pieces of art that looked chosen for memory rather than investment. The place felt lived in, not curated. She opened the door in dark jeans and a soft gray sweater, hair loose over her shoulders for the first time I'd seen. No makeup, no armor, just her. Ethan. Leela, her smile carried a nervous edge, the kind that comes from rehearsing a moment too many times in your head. Leela gripped my hand tighter, Captain Splash tucked under her arm. She looked up at Victoria with that quiet, assessing stare she saves for new people. Hi, Leela said, small but steady. Hi, Leela. Victoria crouched to her level without hesitation. I'm Victoria. Thank you for coming tonight. Leela studied her for a beat. You have a nice house, it smells like basil. Victoria laughed, soft, surprised, genuine. I made pasta and there's chocolate cake after. Come in. Inside smelled of garlic, tomatoes simmering slow, fresh bread warming in the oven. A jazz record turned low on the turntable, Bill Evans, gentle piano notes drifting like mist over the river outside the windows. The dining table was set simply. White plates, cloth napkins, a small vase of river stones, and wildflowers Leela had picked on the short walk up the path from where we parked. We ate. Conversation started careful, Leela asking about the ship I'd fixed, Victoria answering honestly without talking down. Leela listened, nodding like she was storing every detail. When Victoria asked about school, Leela told her about the volcano project she was building with baking soda and red food coloring. Victoria listened like it was the most important briefing she'd ever received. After plates were cleared, we moved to the living room. Leela spread out on the rug with her sketchpad. Victoria and I took the couch, close enough that our knees brushed. Leela drew quietly for a while, then looked up. Victoria, yes. Do you miss your dad when he's away on ships? Victoria's hand stilled on her coffee mug. She set it down with care. Every single day, even now that he's retired. He used to teach me star navigation on the back deck before I could read clocks. I still keep his old sextant in my office. Leela nodded. Dad keeps Mom's compass in his toolbox. He says it always points home even when the GPS lies. Victoria's eyes met mine over Leela's head. Something wordless passed between us. Shared grief, shared gratitude, the quiet language of people who have learned to steer by memory when the instruments fail. Leela went back to drawing. Victoria leaned closer to me, voice barely above the piano notes. I need to tell you something. I nodded. She drew a slow breath. When I was 25, I was engaged for 5 months. He was a captain, young, driven, everything I thought ambition looked like. 3 months before the wedding, he took command of a freighter to Singapore. Fire broke out in the engine room. He stayed to make sure the crew got off. He didn't. The words landed soft but heavy, like rain on steel plate. I shut down after that, buried myself in the company, told myself love was too expensive a risk. Until you walked into that gala and reminded me what steady looks like without needing to prove anything. I reached for her hand. She let me take it. I'm not him, I said quietly. I'm not going anywhere. I know. Her thumb traced the old scar on my knuckle. But I've kept something from you, something I should have told you before I let myself want this. Leela looked up then, sensing the shift in the air. Victoria glanced at her, then back at me. I have a daughter. The room tilted for a heartbeat. She's 21, lives in London, studying marine biology at UCL. We're not close. I was a single mother at 23. Her father left before she was born. I gave her everything money could buy, schools, tutors, opportunities. I gave her almost none of my time. She resents me for it. We exchange Christmas cards, polite emails, that's it. I didn't tell you because I was ashamed, because I didn't want you to see me as someone who failed at the one thing that should matter most. I felt Leela watching us both. Victoria's voice cracked on the last word. I'm telling you now because I don't want secrets, not between us, not anymore. Leela set her pencil down. She walked over, climbed onto the couch between us, and placed one small hand on Victoria's knee. It's okay to miss someone, Leela said simply, even if they're still alive. Victoria's eyes filled. She didn't blink the tears away. She covered Leela's hand with her own. Thank you, she whispered. Leela looked at me. Dad, yeah, Bug. Is it okay if she's part of our crew now? I looked at Victoria, really looked. The woman who'd built an empire from grief and still carried the weight of an empty chair at every holiday. The woman who'd called me when the world was sinking and trusted me to bring it back. Yeah, I said, it's more than okay. Victoria exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for 21 years. We sat there, the three of us, while the river moved past the windows and Bill Evans played on. No one spoke for a while. We didn't need to. 1 week later, the doorbell rang at 7:08 p.m. Sharp, deliberate, like someone who had rehearsed the sound in their head all the way from Heathrow. I opened the door. Elena Reyes stood on the porch. 21, dark hair the exact shade as her mother's pulled into a tight knot, same sharp cheekbones, same onyx eyes, but hers carried 21 years of storm instead of calm. Navy peacoat over jeans, small duffel over one shoulder, exhaustion etched into every line of her face from the long flight and longer silence. Is she here? No greeting, no name. Just the question that had carried her across an ocean. Victoria's inside, I said. You must be Elena. She blinked, surprised I knew without introduction. She told you. She did. Last week. Elena's mouth tightened into a thin line. Of course, right after I booked the ticket. Perfect. I stepped aside. Come in, it's cold. She hesitated on the threshold, then crossed like she was stepping onto unfamiliar ground. The apartment smelled of the chili I'd had simmering since afternoon, comfort food for a night that might need armor. Leela peeked from the hallway, eyes wide, Captain Splash clutched tight. Victoria appeared from the kitchen, dish towel in hand. When she saw Elena, the towel slipped to the floor unnoticed. Elena. The name came out half breath, half prayer. Elena didn't move. You look the same. So do you? They stared across the small entryway, mother and daughter separated by time, hurt, and a silence that had grown heavier with every unanswered call. I touched Leela's shoulder. Bug, let's give them a minute. We'll finish that puzzle in your room. Leela looked between them, then at me. She nodded, small, serious, and let me guide her down the hall. Behind us, the silence stretched until it broke. I didn't know you were coming, Victoria said quietly. I didn't know I was until I was standing at the gate. Elena's voice was tight, controlled. I saw the clip online. The Pacific Dawn, you on the pier with some welder who saved your ship. You looked different, not the boardroom mask, real, and I hated that I still cared enough to book the next flight. Victoria took one careful step closer. I never stopped caring. You stopped showing it. I thought distance was kinder than failing you again. Elena laughed once, short, bitter. Distance isn't kind, it's empty. Another step. Victoria's hands trembled at her sides. I was afraid if I tried to be your mother again, I'd fail worse than before. So I gave you money, schools, freedom. I told myself it was enough. It wasn't. I know. Elena looked away, toward the living room window where river lights shimmered on black water. I came to say goodbye properly, so I can finally stop hoping for something that never comes. Victoria closed the remaining distance, not touching, just close enough that Elena could feel her there. Then say it, Victoria whispered. Say goodbye if that's what you need. Elena's shoulders shook once. I hate you for making this hard. I hate me more. Elena turned back. Tears tracked down her cheeks now, no hiding them. But I don't want to hate you anymore. I'm tired of carrying it. Victoria reached out, slow, careful, like approaching something fragile. Her fingertips brushed Elena's sleeve. Elena didn't pull away. I'm sorry, Victoria said. The words cracked open like a long-sealed hatch. For every birthday I missed, every call I didn't answer, every time I chose the company over showing up, I was wrong, I was scared. And I failed you in the worst way a mother can. I'm sorry, Elena. I'm so damn sorry. Elena exhaled, a shuddering sound. Then she stepped forward and let Victoria pull her in. They stood like that, mother and daughter finally touching after 21 years of distance, crying quietly while the chili bubbled on the stove and the river kept moving outside. I heard the soft sound from the hallway. I stayed with Leela, giving them the moment. When they finally separated, faces wet, breathing uneven, Victoria looked toward the hall. Ethan, Leela, we came back out. Alina wiped her eyes, looked at Leela. You're the one who draws ships. Leela nodded shyly. And volcanoes and whales. Alina managed a small, real smile. I study whales. Maybe we can draw one together sometime. Leela brightened. Okay. Victoria looked at me, eyes shining, exhausted, hopeful. Thank you, she mouthed. I nodded once. We ate chili at the small table, 4 of us now. Conversation was careful at first, then easier. Alina talked about London fog and North Sea research trips. Leela asked about whales singing underwater. Victoria listened like she was memorizing every word for a map she'd finally allowed herself to draw. Later, after Leela was in bed and Alina had accepted the guest room for the night, Victoria and I stood on the tiny balcony overlooking the river. She leaned against me. I didn't think she'd ever come back. She needed to see you choose something besides the company, I said. Tonight you did. Victoria turned, cupped my face. I'm choosing more than that. Then she kissed me, slow, certain, tasting of salt and second chances. When we pulled apart, the city lights reflected in her eyes like stars on dark water. Months passed in the way good things sometimes do, quietly. Victoria took the microphone first. Good evening, she began, voice clear, carrying without force. A year ago, this room laughed at a young woman's proposal to make our fleet cleaner and more efficient. Tonight, I'm proud to tell you that proposal is no longer a proposal. It's underway because of her. She gestured to Alina. My daughter, Dr. Alina Reyes, who has spent the last year turning those numbers into reality. And because of the people who believed in quiet integrity when the room chose noise. Applause started tentative, polite, then grew. Real. Maya Chen, now a junior engineer on Alina's team, stood near the front clapping hardest, eyes shining. Victoria's gaze found mine across the room. She continued. We also owe thanks to someone who never asks for credit, but who reminds us every day that success isn't always loud. Ethan Rivera, damage control chief, father, welder, and the man who brought the Pacific Dawn home when the rest of us were still running calculations. The spotlight found me. Leela squeezed my hand tighter. I didn't wave. I just nodded once, small, steady. More applause, not thunderous, honest. After the formal remarks, the string quartet resumed. People mingled. Alina worked the room with quiet confidence, shaking hands, answering questions, no trace of the anger she'd carried when she first stepped off that plane from London. Victoria found us near the steel wave sculpture, the same one I'd delivered a year ago, now relocated to a place of honor near the entrance. A small brass plaque had been added beneath it. Resilience forged by Ethan Rivera 2025. She touched the plaque lightly. They finally got the name right, I smiled. Took them long enough. Leela tugged my sleeve. Dad, can we dance? I looked at Victoria. She held out her hand to Leela first. May I have this dance, first mate? Leela beamed. Yes, Captain. They moved to the open floor, Leela's small shoes next to Victoria's heels, both of them laughing when Leela stepped on toes. Alina joined them a moment later, taking Leela's other hand. The 3 of them swayed in a loose circle while the music played something slow and forgiving. I watched from the edge, chest full in a way that didn't ache anymore. The Rolex man approached, cautious, glass empty now. Mr. Rivera, he said, no smirk. I owe you an apology. Last year I was dismissive of the intern, of you. I was wrong. I met his eyes. Apology accepted. Just make sure the next time someone brings numbers that matter, you listen before you laugh. He nodded. I will. He walked away. Victoria returned with Leela riding on her hip, Leela giggling, cheeks flushed. Alina followed, smiling in a way I hadn't seen before, open, unguarded. Dad, Leela whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear, Alina says she wants to take me whale watching next summer, in the real ocean. Can we? I looked at Alina. She shrugged, playful. I know a boat. I looked at Victoria. She smiled, soft, certain. Yeah, Bug, I said. We can. The quartet shifted to something brighter. Alina took Leela's hand again. Come on, kid. Show me how you spin. They twirled away. Victoria stepped close, her hand finding mine. Ethan, she said quietly, there's something I need to ask you tonight in front of everyone, but only if you're ready. My pulse kicked up, not from fear, but from the sudden certainty that this was the moment we'd been moving toward since that first catch under the pavilion lights. Ask, I said. She exhaled. Not yet. Soon, she squeezed my hand once, then let go, just long enough to make me feel the space between us. The night was still young. The quartet had eased into something slower, almost reverent, long string notes drawn across the pavilion like a hand trailing water. The crowd had thinned to the last lingering groups, people who didn't want the night to end yet. Leela and Alina stood near the dessert table, Leela balancing a tiny chocolate tart on a napkin, while Alina pretended not to notice the smear already on her chin. They laughed softly, heads close, the way sisters might if life had given them more years together from the start. Victoria led me to the quiet corner by the river windows, floor-to-ceiling glass. The Willamette moved dark and steady below, carrying the city's lights like scattered stars on black velvet. She stopped, turned to face me. No podium, no spotlight, just us. Her hand found mine, cool fingers, steady grip. "Ethan," she said, voice low enough that the music almost swallowed it. "I've spent most of my life measuring success in quarters, contracts, tonnage moved. I built an empire because it was easier than building anything that could break. Then you walked in faded jacket, grease under your nails, no agenda except doing the right thing, and you showed me what I'd been missing." She paused, swallowed once. "I'm not asking for a ring tonight, not yet. I'm asking for something bigger. I'm asking you to say yes to forever, not because it's loud or public or impressive, but because it's quiet and real and ours." She glanced toward Leela and Alina, still at the dessert table, Leela offering Alina a bite of tart, both of them giggling like they'd known each other lifetimes. "I want us to be a family," Victoria continued. "Not patched together out of necessity, chosen, every day. I want Leela to have two women who show up for her science fairs and whale-watching trips and bad days. I want Alina to have a home that doesn't feel like a boardroom. And I want you, Ethan Rivera, to know that the man who never asked for credit is the only man I've ever wanted to build the rest of my life with." My throat tightened, not from fear, but from the sudden, overwhelming certainty that this was the weld that would hold everything together. I looked out at the river a moment, same river that had carried the dawn home, same river that had watched us stand under an awning in the rain a year ago. Then I looked back at her. "Victoria," I said, voice rougher than I intended, "I've spent years thinking the safest thing was to keep everything small. Keep Leela safe, keep the past locked, keep my heart in dry dock. But you and Alina and the way Leela looks at you like you hung the moon, you showed me that safe isn't the same as alive." I lifted her hand, pressed my lips to her knuckles, slow, deliberate. "I'm in," I said, "all the way. For the quiet mornings, for the fights we'll have about whose turn it is to do dishes, for the nights we stay up talking until the river turns silver at dawn, for every ordinary, unglamorous, beautiful day we get to choose each other again." Her eyes shimmered. She laughed once, soft, relieved, joyful. "Then say it louder," she whispered, "so they can hear." I turned toward the room. Leela and Alina had drifted closer, sensing the shift. The last guests quieted, curious. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "I love you, Victoria Reyes," I said, clear enough to carry. "I love the way you fight for what matters, even when it scares you. I love the mother you're becoming to our girls. I love the life we're building, one weld at a time. And yes, forever sounds exactly right." The room exhaled. Alina's hand flew to her mouth. Leela's eyes went wide, then bright. She ran forward, threw her arms around both of us at once. Alina followed a heartbeat later, hesitant only for a second, then wrapped